Hi friends, it's Deanna here today, and today we're going to be sewing up the Brielle Boxy Cardigan. I'm so excited about this release. I've been looking forward to it. I am going to be sewing up a bunch of these because it is so cute. There's a couple of different options. There is a relaxed option and there is also a oversized option. So you can pick what option you want. Today I'm going to be sewing up the relaxed option because I want it a little bit more fitted to my body. There's a crop length, which I'm doing the crop length, and then there's a longer length. There is an option to do the exposed seams. Now this pattern, the style of the pattern has the exposed seams, which I love, but obviously not everybody does. So if you don't want to do the exposed seams, easy enough, and I'm going to tell you how. It has thumbhole options, which I'm going to be doing that option today. It's got an option of a bishop sleeve or a fitted sleeve. I'm just going to be using the regular fitted sleeve. And then you can use functional buttons, or you can just do a regular non-functional placket. I'm going to be doing the functional placket, though usually I don't do that, but we're gonna do it for you today, and we're gonna cross our fingers that our buttonholes look amazing. So let's get started. All right, I'm gonna be using this beautiful burnt orange fabric. I'm super excited about it. The side with the little bent thingies is the right side, and then the wrong side is kind of more of a flat side. So I'm just mentioning that because as I talk about the wrong side and right side, sometimes when sewing this one up, it can get a little confusing in your brain because we're used to doing it all right sides together. And because it's exposed seams, we're gonna sew up most of it wrong sides together. So my brain is like tricking me, like I'm supposed to be doing right sides together, not wrong sides together. Why am I doing wrong sides together? It's right. Now, another thing I'm gonna tell you is because we're doing exposed seams and we're doing wrong sides together, you see that I almost said it, you're going to be able to see your seam, you're going to be able to see your thread. You are going to either use a zigzag stitch or some kind of stretch stitch on your sewing machine. I think I'm going to be using the triple stretch stitch on my sewing machine. And so you'll be able to see that thread. So you want to use a thread that matches the color of your fabric, unless you want to do a coordinating or like a pop of color. That's up to you. Again, if you don't want to see the seams, that's okay, because you can sew it up that way as well with the seams on the inside. Let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our back piece and we're going to lay that out wrong side up. Again, if you don't want to see the seams, you're going to lay it out right side up. So if you don't want to see the seams, you're going to sew it right sides together. But if you do want to see the seams like mine, you're going to sew it wrong sides together. So I've got my back piece here, and I'm going to grab the front piece and I'm going to place it right on top. Like I said, wrong sides together. And then we're going to sew up this shoulder seam, and we're going to do the same for the two shoulder seams.
All right, so this right here, number 5, is my triple stitch, and then there's my zigzag stitch. And I am actually not sure, I'm kind of going back and forth between triple stitch and zigzag stitch, only because I think I'm going to do a longer triple stitch, only because I don't have a ton of this color thread and I don't want to run out. So that's why I'm like, Anyway, if you are doing wrong sides together, if you're doing right sides together and you don't want your seam exposed, you could use a serger for this step. That is up to you. But the reason why we use a sewing machine is so we can see that raw edge. So this is what that triple stitch looks like. It looks like a straight stitch. You can barely even see it because of the fabric color and the thread color. And it just looks like a straight stitch. And then your seam will be exposed. Okay, there it is. And as you can see, it's stretchy.
All right, once you're done with that, you can go ahead and give it a steam, and you can press these seams open. It's up to you if you want to open them up and give them a little bit of texture, or you can leave them straight up. It's really up to you. Then we're going to go ahead and open up that side, and we're going to attach our sleeve. So again, we're opening it up right side up. So I've got right side up, and I'm going to grab my sleeve. I'm going to place it right side down. So this is my back seam. I marked where my back of my sleeve is with this little thing right here. So I want to match that up. This is my center here, so I'm gonna match the center here. And then I'm going towards the front and then towards the back. And I'm gonna do that for both sleeves. Sew that on. You saw what I did, right? And you're like, don't do that. Aha. Right sides together if you wanna hide that seam, but I want that seam exposed. So we're doing wrong sides together. My goodness. Wrong sides together. See, I'm telling you, I told you earlier, it's gonna be a little confusing if you are not used to doing this, and I am not used to doing it. So it's gonna take a little bit of like thinking through and remembering. If you want the seams exposed, you're sewing right sides together. If you want them hidden, you're sewing wrong sides together. I know I'm gonna say that about 10 times while we're sewing this cardigan because, whew. All right, let's go sew that. All right, so now we're going to sew up our cardigan. As you can see, I steamed the seams open. I'm really liking that look right now. I may change my mind later down the road, years from now. You know how we look back on the fashion and we're like, really? But I've seen a lot of the raw edges showing in store-bought clothing as well. So it's an in thing right now. So I like it, so I'm doing it. Okay, now we're gonna sew up those sides. Again, I'm matching them wrong sides together because I am exposing those seams. But if you don't want to expose those seams, you can match them right sides together. All right, so while I'm doing that, I'm also going to go ahead and prep my waistband and my cuffs. So I've got my waistband here. Wait a minute, no, this is my front. Yeah, this is my waistband. This is my front band. This is the around the neck, and this is the, yeah, this is the neck, and this is the front. Oh my gosh, I'm like, huh? Okay, and this is my waistband. So what I'm gonna do is for this portion, I am actually attaching right sides together because I'm not exposing the seams. So my waistband, we're gonna grab our back waistband and then our two front waistbands, and we're gonna sew them right sides together here at the edges. And again, you can use a serger on this step, but honestly, I will tell you that I've found that if you're using like a thicker sweater knit, using your sewing machine is definitely the way to go when it comes to sewing thicker knits, because, well, I mean, you could figure out all the settings on your serger and, you know, maybe you can get it really good, but sometimes the serger can put a lot of pressure on the fabric and pull it, and so it gets a little wavy. So I found that using my sewing machine works best. So I'm grabbing those two front bands and I'm attaching them to the neck band area, right sides together. Okay, right there. So this will become the neckband. Now, if you're using functional buttons, which I am, you can either use the button measuring guide and you can cut a strip of interfacing of knit interfacing that long. Okay, so traditionally, whereas right overlaps the left, right, whereas right overlaps the left on women's clothing. I actually did it the other way on my cardigan, like the traditional men's way. So it's really up to you, whichever side you want your buttons on. It depends on how you unbutton or whatever. I don't know. But whatever side you pick, you want to put some interfacing there because if you're going to make buttonholes, you want that to have some interfacing. And then the interfacing for the buttons is going to go on the whatever's going to be on the top side. So if you're having your left side be on the top, then it's going to go, the interfacing will go on the top, on the left side, because that's where your buttonholes are going to go. So you want to have some interfacing there. You can also just do little pieces of interfacing if you know exactly where you're going to do your buttonhole. So if you want to mark that and do it exactly like that, that will work well. Now on this pattern, I will say we attach the neckband first and then we do buttonholes. I know this is probably not, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but I don't see why you couldn't just use your placement guide and create your buttonholes first. And here's the reason why I'm telling you this. And I could just like place the band like over and like just kind of pin it and then measure my buttonholes and do the buttonholes first, because you know buttonholes can be a little tricky sometimes. And if you're a little bit afraid of buttons and you're afraid that you're gonna mess it up, it's best if we mess up the band first and then we can cut another band and attach it. Then we attached the band already and now we messed up the buttonholes. Now we gotta pick off the band, redo the buttonholes, right? So I'm just thinking that you could probably do it before, but I'm just gonna follow the guide, the steps, and pray, and you all pray with me that I get these done, that my buttonholes work right. But anyway, I got that. Now for my cuffs. So I marked my notches here that are on my cuffs, and I am doing the buttonhole cuffs. So, I mean, not the buttonhole cuffs, the thumbhole cuffs. So that's what the reason why I have all these little notches. If you're just doing a regular cuff, you're not going to have these little notches. If you're doing a regular cuff, all you're doing is you're folding right sides together like so, and you're going to be sewing all the way straight up. Because I'm doing the buttonhole, the thumb holes, what I'm going to do is I'm starting here at the top and I'm sewing. So that gets sewn, back stitch here. Don't sew this part. So the middle part, back stitching at the beginning and the end, leave this part open, sew this bottom part. So you're gonna have these two places here are not going to be sewn. They're gonna be left open. And do the same for both.
So remember, you've got stitching, opening, stitching, opening, right there.
All right, time for the bottom band. And what I did is I went ahead and steamed the band wrong sides together. No, wrong sides together, so it's ready and flat. And I'm gonna grab the bodice of the cardigan and I place my band right at the bottom, and we're just going to sew that on right sides together. Right sides together. Sorry. Match those seams. So I've got the seam of the band to the seam here, the side seam, and then the other side seam as well. All right, let's go sew that up.
All right, I'm changing to a zigzag stitch just because I want to do that for my band. You won't see that stitch, so I wanted to do zigzag. So that's what we're going with because that's what I want to do. You can do whatever stitch you want to do on here. I like to do a longer zigzag stitch. So that's what we're doing. All right, so there it is, my zigzag stitch, and you can go ahead and turn that and give it a good steam.
All right, so now I've got my neckband, and I already did this, but I skipped a video, did not record. Sorry about that. You really want to see this process, so I am going to hit record this time. Anyway, I already attached my interfacing here on my neckband. I didn't really see what side. It doesn't really matter to me because it's the same on both sides, so I can flip it whenever, whatever, I don't know. Anyway, interfacing on the side you want to use. We're going to grab the neckband and we're going to fold it right sides together here at the bottom edge, the short raw edge, and right sides together. We're going to sew that closed right here to create the band. So you're going to flip it over and you'll be straight, right? And we're going to do the same on the other side. Okay. I'm gonna put that aside. Now for the thumb holes. Now, if you have a regular cuff, you can just go ahead and attach normally. But if you have thumb holes, you are gonna have a little bit of a gap here, right? And you wanna hem that seam allowance down. So what we're gonna do is I already went ahead and gave this a steam, so my seam allowance is nice and flat. I'm gonna face my seam allowance towards out. So I've got one seam allowance hanging out here. This is a straight seam allowance. See, the other one has these little bumpy things here. So that's my other side of my seam allowance. So one side is going to be going this way. One side is going to be going this way, right? Because what we're going to do is we're going to fold this together and match up that seam allowance. Now, the one that's folded is gonna go under, so you're not even touching that. You're not going to do anything with that. But the other one is out here, and that's gonna get sewn together. And what you're going to do is you're gonna sew it right along, right beside where we did that first stitch. So right beside it. So you're stitching actually the seam allowance together, but you're not grabbing that other seam allowance. The other seam allowance is gonna stay underneath because we're gonna stitch the other seam allowance after we stitch this seam allowance. So I'm going to show you that when I'm over there sewing it. So you're like, does that make sense? Yes. You know, at first in my mind, I'm like, what are we doing? And then I did it and I'm like, oh, that's nice. So that's what we're doing. I'm going to do it again with the other seam allowance and fold it in and go top stitch that.
I actually had it on a long basting stitch because I wasn't sure about it. And I'm like, is this gonna work or not? So I did it in a long basting stitch first. And then I'm like, you know what? It worked. It worked. So now I can do it on a regular stitch. Remember, you're sewing right beside it. And then once that's done, you're gonna open up and you're gonna see the other seam allowance here. See? The other side of the seam allowance. And we're gonna attach, we're gonna sew those two together. So now that you've sewn both of those, we're gonna grab our cuff and it should flip. When you flip it right sides, you have your thumb hole and it is hemmed. See that? So it's not gonna open on you. And that's where your thumb is gonna go. How cool is that? All right, I'm gonna do the same on the other one.
Okay, we are almost done. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is our band here, we're going to go ahead and flip that. I'm just gonna trim a little bit here in the corner. Don't cut your thread. Just so I can flip it over. And you can use like a little pointy stick or your scissors or whatever. And there's your corner. Do the same on the other corner. Okay, so those are your corners there. And that's what's gonna go around your front area. Again, I don't know. Okay, and so then you're gonna start attaching here at the edge of your sweatshirt. What I like to do is I like to pin it on this side, and what you could do if you wanted to, and I might, is sometimes I like to base stitch this side down so it's not gonna move on me when I start going here. And then we're gonna attach this to the front and all the way around. This is the center, this is the neckband area here. So this will attach here at the shoulder. I said neckband, I meant the back band. So this will go all the way around here, around the front, attaching it right sides together. Just give it a little stretch. And then all the way down the front. All right, so we're gonna sew that using a preferred stretch stitch. You can do it in your serger, you can do it on your sewing machine. We're attaching right sides together, so you're not going to see that seam. See how it's nice and flushed here. I'm still gonna do it on my sewing machine because like I said, I like the touches better when it's on my sewing machine with the thicker knit. My cuff is ready now that we did that. If you didn't have thumb holes, then your cuff was already ready. So we can go ahead and attach it to our sleeve. Remember, this is the right side now, even though you see the seam allowance. I did this last time when I went to attach my cuffs. I attached them on the wrong side because I was confused by the seams. Anyway, I like to have my thumb hole be towards the inside. So I usually do it like where that seam is. So I'm gonna fit it and match that seam with the seam there and attach it right sides together. Let's go sew all that up.
All right. Should have just left that because I'm gonna start with a basting stitch here. Just because. So I basted it, I open it. If it looks good, then I do it. If it's messed up, if it's falling down, if it's too high up, if it's sideways, if it's whatever, I take that basting stitch off, do it again, and then I get going. I'm gonna do the same on the other side. Very good. Now I can change it to my regular stitch, which I'm gonna do a zigzag stitch to sew this. Oh my word. What in the what? All right, I'm gonna redo that because apparently I ran out of thread about halfway, exactly halfway. So let me wind the bobbin and go over it again, and we'll be back for buttons. All right, next we make sure to match these up together and mark where your buttonholes are supposed to go. I'm going to be using some heat, whatever you call it, pens that are removed with heat, friction light. And I'm going to go ahead and do our buttonholes and then we'll be done.
Alrighty, friends. So after trying about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different buttonholes on my machine, this fabric is too thick and too flimsy. Like it's too, I don't know. I even put interfacing on there, not working. My machine is like, no, we are not doing that. So there are different ways of sewing buttonholes. If your machine works with your fabric, perfection. If not, then you can do hand stitch buttonholes, and that's what I'm gonna have to do if I wanna do buttonholes.
I have already here my outline, right? I kind of marked where my buttonhole starts, or it's gonna start and go. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna do a little box around that outline. And use that buttonhole outline. You can't see it because the fabric is the same color as the thread. I'm gonna open it up right there and use my thread and a needle and go around and around and stitch around the whole buttonhole to create my buttonhole. I may go ahead and do a zigzag around that. Just not as tight as because I have been doing a zigzag stitch and it's been okay, but it's just, you know, a buttonhole has such tight zigzag stitching that is what's confusing my sewing machine. So maybe if I do it not so tight. All right, let's start with this bottom one and see what happens if I change it to a zigzag stitch. Okay, and now I'm going back down with a zigzag stitch again, but I think this time I'm gonna do, yeah, it's a shorter zigzag. All right, let's see what happens. Can you see it? It just looks really like a really wide buttonhole. So I'm gonna make them a little bit closer, but I'm just gonna do that small stitch there. That looks pretty decent. And since I have the same color thread, I think it'll be just fine. So let me go ahead and do that to all of them and then we'll come back. Last step is to open up my buttonhole and attach my button. So very carefully open up that buttonhole. This blue stuff that looks all messy, that's gonna come off once we iron it down. Marking my button placements and attaching my button, and I'm gonna attach it by hand because that's what I like to do.
All right, my friends, we are done with this beautiful cardigan. I love how it turned out. It is super cute. Once again, this is the relaxed version with the regular sleeve, Thumbholes, and the cropped, this is the cropped version. So there's a little bit longer version as well. I think it's super cute on button, but my favorite really is it buttoned up. So let's do that. Button it up. So stinking adorable. What do you think? Comment below and let me know what you think. Go grab this cardigan right now because you need it. Let me know what version you're gonna make first and next and after that. And yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your day and I'll see you all next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye.